Hello, everyone, and welcome back to our virtual Mishnah Berurah share. We're holding a Mishnah Berurah Chelik Gimel, and Mirz Hashem today we will be learning Daf Tzadik Aleph Amid Beis. We are continuing to learn Hilchos Shabbos. We pick up today on the bottom line of the Shulchan Aruch on Tzadik Aleph Amid Aleph, Siman Shin Gimel in middle of Sif Tes Vav. Our learning today should be a schus for Achenu Kol Beis Yisrael Hanesunim Batzara Bashivya. Ha'imdim bein bayom u'bein bayabasha hamakim yirachem aleihem v'yaitziam yitzar l'rvacha me'afelu la'iro mishibud l'geula hashta bagolo v'zman kariv v'nemar amein. Our learning should be a schus refuah shalema from Shomer ben Esther Fradel, Yitzchak ben Sion ben Dusha, Tzvi ben Leah Miriam, Chava Hadassah bas Rezel Serel, Dvara bas Shashabina, and Rivka bas Shiraleah. They should have a refuah shalema b'ser shar chil Yisrael. And our learning should serve as a schus. The Rebbeinu Shalom should watch over all of our brothers and sisters that find themselves in harm's way, b'chol makom shehem. So we continue here in Siman Shin Gimel, learning about the different items that a woman, and in some cases a man as well, may go out with into Rishus Harabim on Shabbos, articles she may not go out with to Rishus Harabim on Shabbos, etc. So we pick up today on the last few words of Tzadik Aleph Amud Aleph. The Mechaber gives us another item that a woman is allowed to go out with on Shabbos. Says the Mechaber, Uvemoich sheheskina linidasa. If a woman prepares a wad of absorbent cloth to insert inside herself to absorb the dam nidus. So v'moich sheheskina linidasa, she's allowed to go out with such a moich. Now the Ramah makes a very, very critical point over here. Says the Ramah, Haga shelo yipal dam aleha v'yitzarena. The purpose of this moich has to be to prevent the dam nidus from coming onto her guf and causing her tsar. The moich is not there to protect her clothing. Let's take a look at this in the Mishnah Berurah. The Mishnah Berurah says on Tzadik Aleph Amud Beis, Mishnah Berurah is kat mem hey v'yitzarena. The reason the woman has inserted this moich is to protect her guf. She wants this moich so that the dam should not come onto her skin and cause her tsar, cause her discomfort. Explains the Mishnah Berurah, Avalim eina oisa ela b'shvil atzulei tinuf. But if the woman is only doing this to protect her garments from becoming soiled, lahatzel bigadeha shelo yitanfu, then it would be osur u'kabaysha kasav siman shin aleph sif yud gimel. You see, the heter over here for the woman to go out with the moich is because the moich is protecting her body. Since the moich is protecting her body, it's either a malbush, or if it's not actually serving the purpose directly of a malbush, it's at least what we would call a functional tachshit, which has the same halacha as a malbush. That's why it's mutter for her to go out with this moich. But if the moich is there to protect her garments from becoming soiled, then it's not a malbush, it's not a tachshit, it would be a masui. Now, let's just continue the Mechaber first before I make an additional point. Top line here in Tzadik Aleph Amud Beis says the Mechaber, the woman is allowed to go out with this moich afilu einoi kashur, even if the moich is not tied to her in any way. So the reason the Mechaber is saying this is because we learned in the previous year, we spoke about a moich, an absorbent cloth that a woman put inside her ear in order to absorb any emissions that are coming out of the ear. In that case, the Mechaber said it has to be tied firmly to her ear. Over here, the Mechaber doesn't make that point. By the moich that's for the dam nida, the Mechaber doesn't make such a point. He says the other way. Afilu einoi kosher. Over here, it doesn't have to be tied. Why? Explains the Mechaber. Because over here, if this moich would fall out, it would have dam on it. It's a davar mos. Nobody would pick it up. We don't have to be concerned that she might pick it up and carry it daladamas in Rishus Harabim. And the Mechaber says even further. Afilu yesh loy beis yad. This would even be true if the moich had some kind of a handle. Let's say the moich had a string tied to it that you could use to handle it, to pick it up, so that you don't have to touch the moich itself. Still, says the Mechaber, since the moich is a davar mos, we do not have to be concerned that she might come to pick it up and carry it dalat amis in Rishus Harabim. Says the Mishnah Berurah cut memvav beis yad lahamoich shala. Even if the moich has some kind of a beis yad, the yichol le'echos lahamoich bebeis yad, so that you could pick up the moich using this string or this handle. Still, kamash balada filo hachi mos lemishkale. Still, in all, this is repulsive, and we don't have to be concerned that the woman might come to pick it up and carry it dalat amis in Rishus Harabim. Now, some people might learn this halacha over here and ask the shaila right away. How about a woman who's a nida, who wants to begin her shiva nikiyim, and she wants to use a moich dachuk the night that she's making a hefsek tara? She wants to use a moich dachuk. Let's say that's Friday evening, and is she allowed to go out Rishus Harabim with the moich dachuk? The poskim speak about it. More or less, the poskim take the position that no, it would be usher for a woman to go out outside of an erev we're using a moich dachuk, and this is ein kan makom laha'arich. Says the Mechaber weiter, second line, Tzadik Aleph Amud Beis. Over pilpel, a woman is allowed to go out with a peppercorn, or begarger melach, or with a grain of coarse salt, or bechol boisim, or any kind of aromatic spice, shetite l'soich piha, that she's putting into her mouth. So a woman wants to take a grain of salt, a peppercorn, some other kind of aromatic spice, and put it into her mouth, and go out into Rishus Harabim with this item in her mouth. The Mechaber says this would be mutter. Now, what's going on over here? Let's take a look at the Mishnah Berurah cut mem zayin. Ubepilpel ubegarger melach. The first, the Mishnah Berurah explains why a woman would do this. Pilpel, the point of the peppercorn is l'reach hapeh. Somehow this was something that took care of bad breath. Umelach, and the point of the grain of salt would be l'chayli hashinayim. She has a toothache. We know that rinsing with salt water could help a toothache. Apparently, a grain of salt placed in the mouth in the location of the toothache could also help. So that's why this woman is doing this. So at Shabbos, a woman has a toothache. She wants to go out with a grain of salt. She has bad breath. She wants to go out with a peppercorn. Says the Mechaber, this is mutter. Now, what's the concern? Obviously, the concern is that she's carrying something in her mouth. Why is it mutter? The reason it's mutter, the Mechaber doesn't spell it out, the Mishnah Berurah doesn't spell it out, but the Shulchan Aruch Harav does spell it out. The Shulchan Aruch Harav says that these would be considered tachshitim. The words of the Shulchan Aruch Harav are mipnei shehem tachshitim la. These are considered to be a tachshit. Now here we see again a point that I've made many times already since we've been having these discussions of what you're allowed to go out with, what you're not allowed to go out with. A tachshit is not only an adornment. The word tachshit, we have a malbush. You're allowed to go out with a malbush. Now a malbush is very well defined. A malbush, a garment, is something that either protects the guf or conceals the guf. But then we have other items that serve the guf, but they don't serve the guf in the manner of a malbush. One example would be a cane. A cane doesn't really serve the body the way a malbush does. Yet, the person who cannot walk without a cane, we saw is allowed to go out with a cane. Some people call it a malbush. Some people call it a tachshit. I believe what we saw was it's a minol shaloi. It's his shoe. We saw also by a bandage. We called a bandage a tachshit. Now, these are not adornments. A bandage is not an adornment. A peppercorn in the mouth is not an adornment. But what is it? It's an item that serves the guf. The peppercorn is serving the woman. It's taking care of her bad breath. The grain of salt is serving the woman. It's taking care, it's relieving the discomfort of the toothache. But they're not malbushim. You can't call it a malbush. So it falls under the rubric of tachshit. My point is that we use the word tachshit to include things that serve the guf, but they don't serve the guf really in the manner of a malbush. Those become takshitim. We call those takshitim. So that's what the Shulchan Rav says over here. You could go out with the pilpel, you could go out with the garger melach, you could go out with the boisim in the mouth, because these are considered takshitim. Okay, now the Mechaber makes a very important point. Third line down, near the beginning of the line, says the Mechaber, she could go out with these items in her mouth, however, she's not allowed to put these items in her mouth on Shabbos. So when we say she's allowed to go out with them on Shabbos, what it means is she's putting it in her mouth before the Zman, Friday night, and now she's going out Friday night with it in her mouth. But Shabbos afternoon, when she has a toothache and she wants to go visit her friend, she cannot take a grain of salt, put it in her mouth, and go out, because she's not allowed to put it into her mouth on Shabbos. Why not? This has nothing to do with the halachas of HaTorah. This is a different halacha. Explains the Mishnah Berurah. Mishnah Berurah says a nice cotton memches ubelvad. She's not allowed to put this into her mouth on Shabbos. This caveat, this bilvad that the Mechaber says, is only going back on the case immediate adjacent to the word bilvad, the case of the peppercorn, the grain of salt, the aromatic spice. It's not going back on the halacha of the moich for the dam nidus. So says the Mishnah Berurah, this caveat, it only goes on the case that was right here, where we're discussing what she's placing in her mouth, the peppercorn, the garger melach, the boisim. But this caveat does not apply to the moich for the dam nidus. That, there's no reason a woman cannot put in a moich for the dam nidus on Shabbos. Why not? There's absolutely no reason why that would be asur. V'das kama achrayim, the opinion of many achrayim is, to hadin the mutter lite tevel lechatchila b'Shabbos b'minolim shalanu hastumi mikol tzad. The achrayim say if you want to put some straw into your shoe as a cushion, you could put it in on Shabbos as long as it's a closed shoe. Contemporary poskim say that our insoles and cushions that are specifically fashioned and made for shoes, you're allowed to put them in on Shabbos. You're certainly allowed to go out with them on Shabbos. They're not a problem. There's no question that somebody might think you're doing harama, that you're doing this in order to carry it. Everybody understands that this is the insole of a shoe, so you're allowed to go out with them. You're even allowed to put them in on Shabbos. Now, ois cotton memtes. Here is where the Mishnah Berurah is going to explain what is this caveat of the Mechaber. The Mechaber says the woman could go out with the peppercorn, she can go out with the grain of salt, but she's not allowed to put them into her mouth on Shabbos. Why not? The Mishnah Berurah is going to give us two reasons. First of all, let's realize that the way we've explained the point of the peppercorn and the point of the grain of salt, these are really sort of refuah. These are things that you're doing for medicinal purposes. A person has bad breath, that is sort of a dysfunction in the guf. There's something that's generating and projecting a foul odor from the mouth. In order to heal that, in order to take care of that problem, to remediate it, you want to put a peppercorn in the mouth. A toothache is certainly a physical malady. In order to remediate it, you want to put a grain of salt in the mouth. This is refuah. Says the Mishnah Berurah, we know that we don't do things for refuah on Shabbos because of the gzeira of shchikas samamonim. Chazal were afraid if you would be allowed to use medications on Shabbos, you might come to prepare medications on Shabbos. Well, the way medications were prepared were by grinding up herbs, grinding up spices, mixing them. That's why the symbol of a pharmacist is the mortar and pestle, right? So Chazal said, if we're going to allow you to perform acts of refuah on Shabbos, you might come to the Issa Daraisa of Shchikas Samamonim. So in many instances, they made it Issa D'Rabbanan against refuah. So this would be a case in point. So when the Mechaber says that she can't put the peppercorn or the grain of salt in her mouth on Shabbos, it has nothing to do with Haitzah. It's because of the Gzeira Shchikas Samamonim. Inami, what is another reason why this might be Aser, says the Mishnah Berurah, Misham Demerzi Kilu Ma'aremes Lahoitzi. Somebody sees a woman put salt in her mouth to go out on Shabbos, it looks like what she's really trying to do is transport salt. She's going to her friend for a Shabbos Suda. She knows she likes her food very salty. She's putting salt in her mouth in order to carry it. It looks like harama. It looks like trickery to allow carrying. But none of this would apply to the moich for the dam nidus. It's not refuah. She's doing it to protect her body so that the dam shouldn't go on her skin and cause her discomfort. That's not refuah. And harama is what she's trying to figure out how to carry a cloth with her. It doesn't make sense. Everybody understands what she's doing with that cloth. Going back to the Mechaber, third line down, another halacha. So the Mechaber has said over here that the woman is allowed to go out with the peppercorn, the grain of salt, the aromatic spice in her mouth. She's not allowed to put it into her mouth on Shabbos. So if she puts it in her mouth before Shabbos, she can go out with it on Shabbos. Says the Mechaber now, v'im nofal, if she put it in her mouth before Shabbos, she went out with it on Shabbos, and now it falls out of her mouth. Loi taxir, she's not allowed to put it back in her mouth. Says the Mishnah Berurah, the reason for this is because again, now it looks like she's trying to come up with a trick for how to carry it. Others say Others say that no, the reason if it falls out of her mouth, she's not allowed to put it back in, is because we already said that you're not allowed to put it in your mouth on Shabbos. So now, and again, why aren't you allowed to put it in your mouth on Shabbos? Because of the Gzeira of Shchikas Samamonim. Now, in our case, it was already in your mouth. Now it fell out. Okay, to pick it up and put it back in your mouth, that's like initially putting it in your mouth on Shabbos. And there are those that say, so the question is, how far do you take the Gzeira of Shchikas Samamonim? Do you say you're not allowed to put the grain of salt or the peppercorn in your mouth on Shabbos because of the Gzeira of Shchikas Samamonim? But if you put it in your mouth before Shabbos, and now it fell out on Shabbos, you could put it back. We're not going to make a Gzeira of Shchikas Samamonim. You already understood that you had to put it in your mouth before Shabbos. You didn't initially put it in your mouth on Shabbos. Initially, you put it in your mouth before Shabbos. Now you want to return it to your mouth because it fell out. That will allow you to do. Others say, no, the same way the Gzeira of Shchikas Samamonim says you can't initially put it in your mouth on Shabbos. If it falls out, you also can't put it back. Says the Mishnah Berurah. If that's indeed the reason, if the reason for the Mechaber, when the Mechaber says if it falls out, you can't put it back, is because of the Gzeira of Shchikas Samamonim, in that case, says the Mishnah Berurah, it would only apply if it fell out of your mouth and it fell on the ground. But not if it fell out of your mouth and it fell onto a keli, where we're going to discuss the halach of a bandage that fell off, ayin sham. These are details in the Gzeira of Shchikas Samamonim, which Mirz Hashem will discuss in greater detail in Siman Shin Chav Ches, v'chein mashma das Hagra b'Berurah. Okay, going weiter here in the Mechaber, third line down, end of the line. A woman is also allowed to go out ubebate shekayim, with stockings or leggings shekoishrim b'meshicha saviv shoikeha. So a woman is wearing stockings or she's wearing some kind of leggings, and how are they going to stay up? Right? They didn't have elastics and everything the way we do nowadays. How are they going to stay up? So she takes a string and she ties it around her thigh at the top of the stocking. That would be a meshicha. So shekoishrim b'meshicha, she's tying the stocking with a string, saviv shoikeha, around her thigh. So the halach of the Mechaber is she's allowed to go out with these stockings and with that string, even though the string is not affixed to anything. It's not attached to the stocking. It's not attached to her clothing. It's just a string that's tied around her leg. She's still allowed to go out with this. We're not chayshish that the stocking might fall off, or the string might, become untied and fall off, and she might come to carry it in Rishus Harabim. Says the Mishnah Berurah cutting on Aleph Shekoshrim, Afilu im hamishicha hu davar noi. Even if the mishicha, even if the strap that she's using to tie around her leg is something that is pretty, gam kein lav b'chshal takshiru, the name of the shalfa machavia, we're not going to say, oh, the strap that she's using to tie on her stocking is very pretty. So maybe now it rises to the level of a tachshit, and maybe that brings upon us the gzeira of Dilma Shalfa Machavia. It's a very pretty item. Maybe she'll want to take it off and show it to somebody. Says the Mishnah Berurah, no, there's no room for such a gzeira. And he gives a very interesting reason why. You know why? Because this strap is required for the malbush. The point of the strap is to hold up the stocking. The stocking is a bona fide malbush. It's there to conceal and protect the body. So the stocking is an absolute bona fide malbush. The strap that she's using to tie on the stocking is a tzoyrich for the malbush. That's what keeps the malbush in place. Ukibes yad shel beged dummy. It's like the handle of the beged. And therefore, this strap is not a tachshit. This strap is a malbush. Now, the gzeira of Dilma Shalfa Machavia does not apply to garments. The gzeira of Dilma Shalfa Machavia applies to jewelry. It applies to tachshitim. But this is no longer a tachshit. This is now a malbush. There is no gzeira Dilma Shalfa Machavia on a malbush. We never have a gzeira. A woman is wearing a beautiful mink outside of Rishus Harabim. We don't say she might take it off to show it to somebody. Look at the exquisite lining. Look at the detail on the sleeves. No, it's a garment. There's no gzeira of Dilma Shalfa Machavia on malbushim. This strap is now a malbush. So that's one reason. Now the next reason, which people probably thought of right away in their minds, v'gam bavadei loy shalfa. Also, there's no chance that this woman is taking off this strap and showing it to somebody. Shelo yipla b'tei shakayim. What? It's not going to have her stockings fall off. Also, where this is located, a woman is not exposing herself. So she's not taking this off. There's no room for a gzeira here of Dilma Shalfa Machavia. But what's interesting is the Mishnah Berurah gave us two reasons. The first reason is very much a technical reason. When I mean technical, it's a halacha reason. Mitam halacha, the gzeira of Dilma Shalfa Machavia doesn't apply, because Dilma Shalfa Machavia is not tachshitim. It's not a malbushim. The second one is more of a rational explanation. There's no room for the gzeira of Dilma Shalfa Machavia because she's simply not going to take it off and show it to somebody. Two different types of reasons, if you will. Is cotton and bays b'meshicha. So these b'tay shekayim, these stockings or leggings, are held up with a strap. B'shibali aleket the b'shari rishayim isa b'meshicha oy b'ritzua. The shibali aleket, other rishayim had a different girsa in the words of the mechaber, where the mechaber didn't say that the b'tay shekayim are tied up only with the meshicha. The mechaber gave two cases: a meshicha, which is a string, or a ritzua, a strap. Now, why does that make a difference? Very, tell you why. Chavetz Chaim is always very medactic in the lashon. If you look at the words of the Mechaber says she's allowed to go out with these b'tay shekayim. The word yishtal shalu is lashon rabim. Shalo yishtal shalu, that they will not fall down lamata, down to the ground. What's the lashon rabim? If the mechaber is the way we have the girsa, meshicha, so that's singular, one string. If it's meshicha or ritzua, so then the mechaber is giving two cases. That the b'tay shekayim are tied up either with a meshicha or with a ritzua. Both are mutter, and we're not concerned that they, either the meshicha or the ritzua, might fall off. Okay, now we go to the next halacha here in the Mishnah Berurah. And I was hoping that the siyata d'shmai of saying a shir would kick in, but it did not. I guess I wasn't zeicha. The next halacha here in the mechaber, I am puzzled. I am not sure exactly what this case is. And I haven't been able to find, in the time that I've had, I haven't been able to find an explanation that satisfies me. So I'll read the words and I'll translate them. I'll tell you what it seems to mean. I'll tell you what my problems are. It says the Mechaber, V'yoytza be'etzada, a woman is allowed to go out with an etzada. Now, an etzada is either a bracelet or an armband. V'yoytza be'etzada, a woman is allowed to go out with this. Shamanichin bazraya, that she puts on her arm, oy bashoik, or on her thigh. V'hu shetei devukah labasar, but the only way that this is mutter is if it is on her flesh, it's on her skin. V'loy tishamet, and therefore it will not fall off. V'yesh mi she'oser b'shel zraya, and there are those that prohibit going out with the etzada on the arm. Okay, let's take a look at the Mishnah Berurah. Ois katan nun gimel. Be'etzada shemanichin bezraya ayin bebir halacha demayri shemanicha umahatka al besara. This etzada is on her skin, and it's tight. Shemanicha umahadka, she places it and tightens it, al besara, on her flesh, on her skin. V'loya lakutainas milamala. It's not going like on her blouse. It's going on her arm. Valkain mutter. And that's why it's mutter. That's why she's allowed to go out with this etzada. We're not afraid that she's going to take it off and show it to somebody, because in order to take it off and show it to somebody, she has to uncover her arm. The zraya is the upper arm. So, according to what we're seeing here so far in the Mishnah Berurah, is the etzada is some kind of a bracelet or some kind of an armband that is on the woman's upper arm. Now, it's not over her clothing. It's directly on her skin. So she's going out with this etzada, this armband or bracelet, on her skin, underneath her clothing. We don't have Gzeira Dilma Shalfo Machavia, because she's not going to expose her upper arm in order to show it somebody. That would be against Gidrei Atznius. Says the Mishnah Berurah, and V'zeh hatam hu gam ken al shoika. The same halacha applies on her thigh. Again, she won't expose her thigh, her upper leg, in order to show somebody this etzada that's on her upper leg. And then we had a Yesh Oimrim that said that on the upper arm it's aser. The Yesh Oisrim says her upper arm, her upper leg, she won't expose. That's very chomer, right? The thigh, she's not going to expose her thigh. The upper arm, yeah, it's not Megidrat Tznius to expose the upper arm, but it's not the same level as the upper leg, and therefore the Yesh Oisrim says that an etzada on the arm is aser. Now, before I tell you what's confusing me, let's see Ois Katan Nun Dalet. Sheitei devuka, but it has to be tight. The imhi refuya, if it's loose, chayshidan shebetipa v'asya la'asuye. If it's loose, it might fall off, and then you might come to carry it, and you might come to carry it al amas rishus harabim. Okay, what exactly is this etzada? What is its purpose? At first, I thought maybe it's like the meshicha, or the ritzua that we were talking about, the batei shekayim. Maybe it's something fancy that's holding up the stockings, but it's clear from the Mishnah Berurah and everything that it's not. It's on her basar. It's on her skin. The one that's on the arm, the Mishnah Berurah says beferish, it's underneath her blouse. It's underneath the clothing. So what is this thing? It doesn't seem to be a takshit. It's not exposed. It's not anywhere where anybody can see it. It's not a malbush. What kind of malbush is it? It's not. I don't know what it is. Why is it mutter to go out with this? Another problem that I have is the Mishnah Berurah is saying now that it's something which is very tight. Now, if it's very tight, why doesn't that generate the concern that this is something she would have to take off if she would have to go to the mikveh? If it's a band of some kind that's very tight on her body, so then she has to take it off, in order to go to the mikveh, and why isn't that a problem? That she might come to carry it. Now, we said that gzera doesn't apply to clothing, right? We don't say, well, a woman obviously has to undress herself in order to go to the mikveh, so she can't go outside wearing clothing, because we're not afraid that a woman is going to go to be toivel and then be toivel, get dressed, and leave some of her clothing off and carry her clothing home. We're only worried about that by small items, like the hair accessories and this and that. But if this is just an armband, and it's tight, so this is like a garment that we're not afraid that she's going to carry. But my ikar problem, I guess, is I just don't know what this is and why it's mutter to wear it. In other words, in order for it to be mutter, for her to wear it outside in Rishus Harabim, it's got to be a malbush or a takshit. What is this? It's a takshit? Maybe it's a takshit shebi bifnim? It's a private takshit? I don't know. I'm a little puzzled. Okay, we're going to go a little bit weiter. Eiskat tezayin. Bechol ma sheyichol lotzeis. Whatever halacha allows a woman to go out with on Shabbos, yichol lahatiroi b'rishus harabim. She's allowed to open it up in Rishus Harabim and then close it again. V'lo chayshinin dilma maskele, and we're not afraid that she might go ahead and carry it. So, in other words, let's say a belt that a woman's allowed to wear outside of Rishus Harabim. Right? If she's outside of Rishus Harabim, she needs to adjust her belt, she could open up her belt and then close it up again. Of course, she can't do this while she's walking. She's going to have to stop. But we don't say that you're not allowed to open it up, because if you open it up, you might take it off and then go carry it. That's the point. The point is, if you're allowed to go out with it into Rishus Harabim, then once you're out with it in Rishus Harabim, you're allowed to open it up and undo it, and then close it again and keep on going. And we don't say it's usher for you to open it up, because once you open it up, you might come to carry it Daled Amos in Rishus Harabim. Says the Mishnah Berurah, she's allowed to open it up, like her belt. The reason for this is, any type of garment that Chazal felt, it's the derech to take it off when you're out. So like jewelry. Chazal said, it's the derech that you might take off the piece of jewelry, dilma shalfa umachavia. You might show it to somebody. So since it's the derech, since there's a reasonable suspicion that you might take it off when you're out in Rishus Harabim, we don't let you go out with it. Because if we're going to let you go out with it, you might come to take it off and carry it to Rishus Harabim. A hair accessory that she needs to take off to go to the mikveh, we're not going to let you go out with it. Why? Because you're going to go out, you're going to take it off to go to the mikveh, and then you'll carry it home. So those things we said, you're not allowed to go out wearing. The shemakishet to sirena, the cholad varm shergin la siran asr chazal lotzei spend mi besa kishilavusha behen. Anything that it's the derech to take off, we don't let you leave your house wearing. The shemakishet to sirena, because when you take it off, achakach b'rishus harabim, then tishkach shu Shabbos, you might forget that it's Shabbos, va'asya la'asuyeh, and you'll come to carry it. So again, Chazal said, we're not going to let you leave your house on Shabbos, go out to Rishus Harabim, wearing something that it's the derech to take off. Why? Because we're going to let you wear it. Now in Rishus Harabim, you're going to forget that it's Shabbos, you're going to take it off, and you're going to carry it. But items that we let you go out into Rishus Harabim, because it's not the derech to take them off, muteres likshor lahater b'Rishus Harabim. You're allowed to open them up and tie them and retie them in Rishus Harabim. To be manushach, what are we worried about? If when you open it in Rishus Harabim, you remember that it's Shabbos, you're not going to come to carry it. If at that moment, when you're untying it, you forget that it's Shabbos, what is it going to help for us to tell you that you're not allowed to undo your belt in Rishus Harabim on Shabbos? What is that going to help? If you remember, you're gonna say, oh, I can't untie my belt in Rishus Harabim. Why? Because I remember that it's Shabbos. If you're gonna forget that it's Shabbos, so then you're gonna forget that we told you you're not allowed to untie your belt, and you're gonna untie your belt anyway. If we're afraid, if our fear is that while you're out in Rishus Harabim, you're going to forget that it's Shabbos, so then what does it help for me to tell you can't untie your belt in Rishus Harabim? You already forgot that it's Shabbos. The only thing that we do is, when you're in your house, before you go out, we tell you, don't put on something that there's a very reasonable expectation you might take it off in Rishus Harabim, because then you might come to carry it. And he brings this down from Tosfos. This is where we're going to stop. We'll continue next time with Sif Yud Zayin. Thank you so much for joining me for Limud HaTorah. This is Limud HaTorah should be making against Klal Yisrael. The Rebbeinu Shalom should send Yeshua Sefos Parnasos Sheduchim Tol Oz in need. We should be zeichet to see the BS Gold Tzedek. B'mherav Yameinu Amen. Be well.